Okay, so our topic is discrimination in the military, and specifically, we have divided it up into talking about race and sexuality in the military. Okay, so this is our ranking system. We use different ranks in the military, and we're going to assign like how good each of them is according to that. Okay. And Brigham.
All right, so the part of my project is I was supposed to talk about racism or find video sources based on racism in the military. And so the first one I found was a CBS video that they created interviewing two generals. One is the Sergeant Major of the Army, I believe. Don't quote me on that. And the second one is a sergeant. His name is Sergeant Brown, and he's part of the Joint Chairman of Chiefs, which is like the guys who make all the decisions for the military. And so the motivation of this video was to show that there is actually racism in the military, and both of them are one of them is half African American and then white, and then the other one's full African American. And one of them talks about how he personally had stuff happen to him. He talks about more in depth. I don't know what you call them, but specifications or when he actually felt it himself. The other one kind of talks about it broadly, but doesn't really mention a whole lot. But it was overall a really good video, and I did a smell check on it, and it seems like a pretty legit video. So, and then I did 3 fact checks. One of the things that they were claiming in there is, or not really claimed, but they mentioned how General Grinston, he's the one who's the Sergeant Major of the Army. He talked about how he put a video on social media describing what he's noticed with racism in the military, and a lot of soldiers apparently a lot of soldiers responded. So I wanted to see if that's actually the case. So I went on Google and found lots of 5 other soldiers talking about experiences they've had in one of the videos. So overall, I've just done some fact checks and stuff. So, but yeah, so that's kind of what I've done so far. And then also I've done the about us and everything.
Okay, I think it's me next. Can you hear me? Is my microphone?
Yeah, you're good, dude.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, so this is my section. I was with Brigham. I was working on the racism in the military issue as well. So I finished 3 of the smell tests. The first article that I had, if we go to the next page. So those are the 3 articles I picked. And then here's the first one. It was from PBS. So this was my mainstream news source. It was kind of similar to Brigham. It was 2 African Americans being interviewed, talking about their experiences in the military. And so I finished the smell test for this one. Haven't done any fact checking yet. This was probably the easiest one for me though. And then if we skip through here to the second article, the online one was a little bit harder. I had Candy help me out a little bit with this one, just trying to find an article. So I got one from Military Times. It's just an online news source. And their story, this was just basically like a pretty quick rundown of the new military news this week. And there's a short section where they talked about like white supremacy in the military. So that's kind of what I was focusing more on. Again, with this one, I finished the smell test. Haven't done too much of the fact checking yet. And then with satire, so this one was probably the hardest video to find. So I had Candy help me out, and she actually suggested the Civil War Key and Peele sketch, the Civil War reenactment, which I thought was hilarious. It was a video that I already knew. So the smell test for the satire one was pretty interesting. Trying to think of like the motivation for the video and stuff. Like it wasn't as obvious as like an actual news report, since they weren't really reporting news. It's just like a sketch comedy show. But I still got through that one. And then right now I'm just working on finding the facts that I need to fact check and getting that part completed. But I had this small test for the 3 articles done.
All right. So I did LGBTQIA discrimination in the military. I found 3 videos. The first video I used was from a public news source. It was about a trans woman who had been discriminated against in the military in the early 2000s, it seems like. And then the second video I found was a video about, it was an As Is or BuzzFeed video that went into detail, or it told the story of 4 gay men in the military and their experience with that. And, you know, based on what we know, it wasn't the best experience. The third video I found was from Comedy Central. It was a Jim Jeffries show, and it was about 5 minutes long, and he went over the history of how queer people have been discriminated against all throughout history in the military, or in any kind of military, and how Trump's transgender ban was regressive and going back to those more primitive times, I guess you could say. So I've done all of my smell tests, but I've only done one of my fact checks, and down to slide 34. The fact check, so the first one I just did, so in the first video, it claims that there was a transgender ban done under the Trump administration that further stapled in ideas of discrimination amongst the military community. Upon further investigation into a New York Times article, I found that this is a valid statement. I won't go through the whole thing just for the sake of time. But yeah, that is everything I've done so far.
Okay, so I was also on the LGBTQIA plus discrimination. This is just about me. I had red hair at that point in time. I've dyed it like a million times. Go to the next slide, dumb butt. There we go. Okay. The articles I used for satire, it was from the Russell Howard Hour. He is a British guy over that works for Sky One, and his was very interesting to look at and had some pretty strong opinions. Used a good bit of exaggeration and all that jazz, but it was great. And then mainstream news source was from ABC, and it was about a transgender veteran, can't talk. And my internet news source was from Mashable, and it was called Trump Bars Transgender People from Military, and I think that might have been a typo for Trump bans. Anyway, okay. Okay, so I did my smell test for my satire. I did that completely. And let's see. Okay, and then I started fact checking for my satire one as well. And a lot of things that he talked about in the video were comparing how much it would cost to have transgender troops versus versus what the military has spent money on for other things. And so I fact checked about how much he estimated it would cost, and that came back to be fairly true. And then I started on the next one, and the last one I did, I thought it'd be kind of funny to include one of the things that he talked about. Apparently the US military he claims, spent $41 million yearly on Viagra, compared to the $5 million that he claims would only cost for LGBTQIA whatever people. So and then Shane isn't with us right now, but he's going to post later about what he has done. And that's it. Does anyone have any questions or concerns to address?
I don't know if we need to mention it. We're planning on making this into a website, so we're working on that as well. Rachel, I don't know if you want to show it real quick.
Yeah. So I think it's that one. Oh, of course I'll just stop screen sharing. Why wouldn't I?
I mean, we don't have to if we're gonna run out of time, but we're working on the website. We had Rachel put a couple things on it. She's really ahead of the game on that. So
yep. So let's see. Yeah, so we have it on Weebly, started doing some stuff for it, and yep. Okay. And stop recording.